I'm Daniel, I'm a sleep physician, and if you have insomnia, this channel is for you. Today, we're going to talk about sleep debt. Many have this impression that it's just like the national debt. It just grows and grows and grows until something catastrophic happens, or to a point where you just can never ever pay it back. We're going to see that that is not the case. And in fact, you can pay it back pretty easily. Hey there, hope you're doing really well today, and I'm especially excited about today's episode because it is inspired by a viewer, I think maybe the most dedicated viewer here, who shared with me that he has watched all the episodes 4 times, and he shared with me one more thing, which was the following: that I think he had been in a conversation with somebody about sleep and sleep debt, and somebody has said something to the effect that I haven't slept well for 3 days. I really gotta I really gotta sleep well now. And then the conversation went to a place where this other person said, well, what would you do if you something happened and you really didn't feel well? Let's say you had a cold or something like that, and you hardly ate for 3 days. Does that mean that now the 4th day you have to eat the total amount of food you normally would have eaten in 3 days in 1 day? No, it's not like that. We know that. Even if we don't eat well for 3 days, we have a cold or something like that, the 4th day, when we're feeling better, we start eating more, but it's not like we have to eat all that food at once. That is true. Our body has ways to regulate that. And sleep works in a similar way. And so I think the first thing I want to go, the first place I want to go to here was actually part of that conversation, which was the following: that actually, unbeknownst to me, I haven't really talked about this before, but the viewer here told me that he felt that, I think he himself and other people have done this, where you go, let's say, day after day, and you count how many hours you sleep, and you're like, let's say your goal is to sleep 7 hours, and you're hitting like 4, you're hitting 3, 5, etc., and then you add up, like you had 3 hours of sleep debt plus 4 hours plus 4 again plus 2 plus 3, and after a couple of days, you're like, I'm at 28 hours of sleep debt. Like, I need to pay this back. I really need to pay all this back. And as you can see, there are a lot of problems with this when you think of sleep debt as like something that just accumulates and accumulates and adds and adds and adds and adds. One of them is, firstly, this just illustrates how you are clock watching and monitoring hours of sleep. As I've talked about so many times, the focus should always be on how you feel during the day, not how many hours you sleep. That's kind of one teaching point here. Number 2, thinking of sleep debt as like ever accumulating, and the need to pay that back creates so much pressure then that exactly what you want to do becomes impossible, right? Because you're lying there like, oh, I've got 32 hours of sleep that I have to pay it back tonight. That doesn't help at all. And then now towards the more, let's say, educational part of this is that, sleep debt can be paid back, absolutely, but not like hour by hour like that. When you hear in media and the news, etc., like that, it often says that don't think you can pay off your sleep debt by just sleeping, crashing on the weekend. What they're talking about is different. It is, somebody that has stays up very late because they're playing video games, and then gets up really early and kind of burns their candle on both ends, and we're super busy, and then just sleep like crazy during the weekend. So behavior we think of as maybe a teenager or an early adult, something like that. And it is true that if you have been slept very little over a whole week, let's say, and then you crash and sleep a lot one day, then you may not really feel refreshed. It may take a few days before you feel completely refreshed and in your normal state of feelings. That is true, but the point that is the more important point there is that if you have that pattern, like you sleep very little and then you sleep a lot, then you may never be able to get into a more regular pattern, actually, because you sleep so much during the week, and that may actually be more of the problem. But anyway, I think something more important here is the concept of core sleep. I've talked about this in a specific video, but basically it goes like this. When we are under times of stress, it is actually helpful for us to sleep a little bit less. Maybe not in today's society, but historically, let's say you're out living in a village somewhere and there are wolves in the neighborhood, then it's good for you actually to be on edge and sleep a little less. And the body has the ability to function for actually indefinitely on a quite small amount of sleep. It's about 4 hours. And that's core sleep. There are different ways of looking at it, but the way I look at it, core sleep is the minimum amount of sleep that is indefinitely sustainable. And it's about 4 hours. So people can muddle through on about 4 hours for long periods of time. If you go below 4 hours, then you eventually have crashes where you sleep more. So what I want to say here is that your body is kind of built to sustain low levels of sleep under times of stress. And yes, if you go for a long period of time on core sleep and then you start sleeping better again, it doesn't take that long to feel good again and reach equilibrium. Maybe a couple of weeks at the most. So it's relatively easy to pay off your sleep debt once you start sleeping well. So I think I want to add just one more thing here. And I think this is an important one too, which is going back to the food analogy. If you are not getting enough food, if you get none or extremely little food, over time, your hunger accumulates and you get more hungry, and you're probably going to eat more if you have access to food, but you may not. So yes, going without food can be harmful to your health. Malnutrition or worse could happen if you are starving. That is true. But you know what? The body cannot produce food by itself. But guess what? Your body can produce sleep by itself. And that's why going on very little sleep actually does not harm your body, because when your body gets to a point where it's like I really need that sleep, it makes you sleep. It creates sleep. It can create sleep by itself. So with that said, I hope that helped you if you have concerns about sleep debt. And if you are maybe new to the channel, or you're thinking, but okay, so how can I start repaying my sleep debt? Well, that's what all the videos here are really about. Using all the techniques I talk about here. And by the way, starting from the beginning is always good. That's where I have the kind of core techniques. So if you use the techniques in this channel, you can start paying off that sleep debt and sleep better and feel better and be more happy. If you have a question, please leave a comment or send me an email, daniel@insomniainsight.co, and I look forward to having you back here tomorrow. Until then, stay out of trouble.